Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Girlfriend Hour. I'm your host, Morgan Feza, and today we have an awesome guest. We have Brad Cooney in the house. Brad, want to say hello?
What's up, everybody? Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, we're so happy to have you. So for those of you that are not familiar with Brad made his, I want to say his big debut on The House in Between 1 and 2. The House in Between 1 was aired during the pandemic. It was 2020, and The House in Between 2 actually just hit their 1 year anniversary, correct?
That is correct. Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to kind of pass the torch over to you, let you introduce yourself, and we'll kind of just dive into your journey.
Okay. So I'm, as you said, Brad Cooney. I am correct. I'm in both films, The House in Between 1 and 2, as one of the main investigators, and was blessed to work with Steve Gonzalez from Ghost Hunters and Kendall Welton, two brilliant filmmakers, and of course his wife Vera did a lot of producing and directing in the part 2. Well, not she didn't direct in part 2, but she produced and edited part 2 and did a great job and was producing in part 1. And of course, my journey. I mean, do you want me to start like how I journeyed into the paranormal field? Because I have I'm in my 50s now, so my book's kind of thick. How deep you want to get with this stuff?
Oh, I want to get deep. I want to know it all. I want to know, early life, what did you originally start at? Was this something that you always wanted to do, or was this something that you had an original? I feel like everybody has an original plan and we never follow it. So was this something that you knew from the jump that like, I want to do this, or was this you
No.
had a totally different plan and then it just kind of
Yeah. I absolutely had no freaking idea I would end up in paranormal films and investigating haunted locations. I've always been fascinated with paranormal and always been fascinated with UFOs and Bigfoot and just kind of things that are a little bit weird. Because I was kind of a nerdy weirdo anyway. I was into
Oh, we
astronomy.
love weird. We
Yeah,
welcome
yeah. I
weird.
mean, I used to really enjoy looking at planets and stuff with a telescope in my backyard, and my junior high school had a planetarium, so we actually took astronomy class.
Oh,
So
cool.
so that was pretty cool in my younger days. And then when I went into the Navy, I actually had a couple UAP experiences, and saw some strange things flying in the skies over the Atlantic Ocean. And I also in the Navy, one of my jobs was to operate the air radar and surface radar, and I tracked UAPs. That's John Boulder blowing my phone up, by the way. My house was brother.
You have to tell him that I said hi.
I'm gonna hit him back right now. I'm literally in the interview. So the Navy was really interested because I saw some UAPs and tracked some UAPs on the air radar of like things going like 2,000-3,000 miles an hour, and like I didn't know what the heck that was. So these
Wow.
UAPs, that's another. We could probably do another podcast on that.
Absolutely. Listen, you're always welcome here. So as many times as you want to come on, we'll have you.
Yeah. So getting back to your question, so always been fascinated with paranormal stuff as far as Bigfoot, UFOs. Was not really like really into like paranormal stuff as far as ghosts and spirits and things. Um, was never a skeptic. I mean, I always thought it was possible, you know what I mean? But I never, like a lot of other people that are in this field, I never had any experiences with ghosts and stuff when I was growing up or anything like that. Really, how I got into actually investigating paranormal activity in alleged haunted houses was by accident. If you saw the first film, it explains that. I mean, I was just on my laptop one day and my TV was on in the background, and I heard a local news segment talking about this haunted location in Florence, Mississippi. Well, I live like 10 or 15 minutes from Florence, Mississippi, so it got my attention, And so I listened, and I saw a girl named Erin that was on this segment, and she was a neighbor that grew up next to Alice's house, the house in between, the house itself. And they were talking about Alice and this house that all these crazy weird things were happening in, and I was fascinated. I totally forgot my laptop, and I'm like looking at the TV now, and so I reached out and I found Erin on social media. I found her on Facebook, and I said, "Man, I'd love to come out there and meet Alice and really experience that. So she set it up. She set up a meeting with me, and I went down there, met Alice, and had an experience in the house within like 10 minutes, maybe. Like
Oh my
something
gosh.
crazy was happening in there.
So what experience did you have?
So
Like
we
what?
saw these little light anomalies. I still have the video of it. Like in the back right bedroom, because Alice is showing me around the house, and in the back right bedroom, like there was like these weird little round light anomalies that were like scurrying on the rug. It was weird. I was like, what? I'm like, what is that? It was
My
like
gosh.
weird. I was, and it wasn't like a peripheral vision thing either. I was able to get a fix on it. And even Alice were like looking at it, and she's just like, "Oh, yeah, well, it happens in here." I'm like, "What? What do you mean it happens here?
Nonchalant.
What?" So that got me really hooked, and that's how my journey began. This is well before documentaries and film. Um, some people don't realize that we were researching this house for years before like any idea of a film came to play. So we have a lot of years in there investigating. John Bullard, especially, and he's been, I think it's 15th year now investigating that place, and I'm going into my 8th year. So yeah, that's in a nutshell. That's how I got into it. And then before like the films came out and the house got famous, I started investigating other locations in Mississippi and Louisiana, one in Tennessee. So kind of the South. I started like branching out, checking out other locations, and then of course Steve Gonzalez arrived on scene. We basically, we did everything we could do as far as investigating the house for Alice, and we didn't really know what else we could do. So we reached out to Steve because Steve is a pioneer in the field, and he's one of the best investigators in the world. So we reached out to him, and he actually responded. So we got lucky because Steve gets a million people want Steve to come
Yeah.
investigate their location. You know what I mean? So Steve was intrigued by basically what really intrigued Steve was by how many years we've been researching one location and all that documentation.
Yeah.
Because it's really one of the things that separates this location is that the fact that it's one spot that's been investigated for so many years, and video and audio. We had so much documentation and evidence captured, and Steve was like really intrigued by that because this basically was a over decade case study of one
Yeah.
location. So that was really the beginning of the film chapter of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, in a nutshell, that's kind of how I got into the field.
I mean, that's pretty neat. And like kind of similar to what I said to John was touching upon what you just said with the longevity of how long that case has gone on. When I initially saw the movie, like I was home just like the rest of the world with COVID, and I saw it come up on Apple TV. And I was like, "Ooh, what is this?" And me being
Mm-hmm.
the paranormal horror junkie that I am, I like clicked on it. I watched the trailer, and I am all about like if you put a skeptic in front of me, I'm going to do backflips to try and get this person to understand how real the paranormal is. So, like, to see a movie that is not just the oohs and ahs, it's not the jump scares, but it's the downright scientific,
Mm-hmm.
skepticism proving actual tangible evidence, putting that out there for people to see, like, it's not a joke. It's not here to like scare you, but we're trying to physically show you this is a super intelligent haunting.
Right.
I mean, that's what for me as just a third party kind of just consumer watching this, I was like, it was not what I was expecting, but in a really pleasant way. Like I was like, this is so different and sets it so far apart from your normal, horror or paranormal
Right.
docuseries because it's so you brought in so many different resources to, I guess the word I'm looking for is prove that there is intelligent hauntings and also show them with science, with like real hard facts that like this
Mm-hmm.
is not being faked, this is not, this is months and years and hours
Right.
and minutes of hard work. So I thought that was really really cool.
Right. And that was the beauty of Steve Gonzalez and Kendall Welton. Um, we didn't want to just make a documentary film. I mean, we wanted to marry science and the paranormal field because they can coexist. So a lot of scientists may not think so, but there are some scientists, they're just not very vocal about it. But yeah, we wanted to, we're not a jump scare film. We got a lot of really good reviews, like over 6,000 on Prime for the first film, and the majority of them are good, but there's a few that are like, oh, I thought this was going to be like The Conjuring or The Exorcist, or it's not. It's a documentary film, and but it was important to the team to really show all sides. Some of our best reviews were from skeptics.
Yeah.
They were very, very appreciative of, wow, finally it's a show that actually shows some science here, and you brought in some people to take a look at, maybe it's not a ghost, maybe it's, the house isn't level, or maybe we brought in an electrician, we brought in weather people, and of course, part two, we brought in a geophysicist, or a legit scientist.
I thought that was
Well,
really, really cool. That was one of
yeah,
my favorite things.
she's brilliant. I mean, she's so smart that I'm like cautious to have a conversation with her. I'm like, oh man, hope I can keep up. You know what I mean? I have
Yes.
to tell her to dumb it down a little bit for me so I can comprehend. But she's such an awesome person, or Catherine. But yeah, so I think that's one of the things that really separates our two films. And there's a lot of good filmmakers and a lot of good films out there. So I'm not trying to say, that there's not great stuff out there also. But I really think one of the things that really separates us is the time and the years put in, and all of, like you said, all the resources we brought into this film to cover every angle. I mean, if you remember when Steve was on the stairs with a the air compressor, he tried to blow the baseball off the steps.
Because people were saying they were like, oh, that could happen because of uneven stairs. And I'm like, well, the thing is, that's why you have to watch the movie, because you
Right,
guys literally left no stone unturned.
right. I lost your audio. I can barely hear you now.
Oh, can you hear me now?
A little bit better.
Oh, I
Maybe
feel
it's
like
your
this.
headphones, maybe. I don't know.
Let me
You
see.
there?
Oh, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but it's a lot lower. I have to let me turn up my side, maybe. Your audio was really good, and all of a sudden, boop, it kind of went away.
Oh no, I hope my mic isn't like giving out on me. I feel like weird stuff always happens to me when I'm on this podcast.
Of course. I'm a podcaster, so I totally get that.
Oh my gosh. It's like every time I start talking about something paranormal, or it's my lights, or it's my mic.
There you are.
Okay, you can hear me again?
I can.
All right, perfect.
Yep. So yeah, so that, I think that really is what separates us from a lot of the other films out there, is until our films came out, I just, myself, as a fan of watching TV, I've never seen any other documentaries that really went hard like we did, bringing in scientists and looking at that aspect of it. And that's, Steve runs a tight ship. His reputation's as good as it is for a reason.
Yeah.
He doesn't just jump on, oh, it's a ghost. Not with Steve. You're really gonna have to really research that before he even comes close to saying something like that. So, which is good. That was part of the beauty of the film.
Yeah, absolutely. And it touches upon that, like, it's not a jump scare, and it's truly not leaving any stone unturned. It's just
Right.
truly showing you like tangible evidence that's not faked. It's not over exaggerated. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
And so I guess my next question for you, and I just love, because so many people have been a part of the team with these films, hearing everybody's different perspectives on it. So to you, working on this case, what was what was kind of the golden goose egg for you? What was the
Which
part
one?
of this haunt? Huh?
The first one or the second film?
Oh, that's tough. Okay, first and second. So I'm gonna pose that for first and seconds, because
Okay.
I feel like everybody has a either whether it was an intelligent response that you had gotten, or what kind of really
Right.
blew your mind.
So the first film, um, well, let me just preface that with this. Every time we needed this house to do something like really crazy, like when we had like a special guest come in, it freaking does. It does. It's like weird. It's almost like, is is this house alive? I mean, what the hell's going on here? Like, can lightning? How many times can lightning strike a bottle in a bottle? It's like, so really, the first film was for me when if you saw the film, you remember the end of it where Kendall, they're wrapping up, they're picking up the equipment that we finished filming the whole nine. I mean, and when the baseball came down the steps right in front of Kendall. And so let me just set that up for you, because what a lot of people don't know is right before that happened, me and Steve were out in the driveway and we were heading towards a car because we were going to drive into Florence, the little town, and go to visit Miss Mary Alice. She does all the town history stuff and the archives. You remember her in the film?
Yeah.
Mary Alice. She's the one that said, "Do I believe in wood?" The older lady. Remember her? She's the best. She's fantastic. Like, she just turned 97.
Are you serious?
Yeah, she just had her 97th birthday.
She
Yeah,
looks
she's
great for her
great. And she still
age.
drives her car. She drives to Vicksburg and goes to like her friends bingo, and she's just amazing.
I'm telling you,
97.
age is but a number. If you keep
That's
that
right.
mind
That's right.
sharp and you keep
Yeah,
active, good
she's
for
great.
her.
But me and Steve were heading towards a car because we were going to go to see Miss Mary Alice. And we were walking down the driveway and we just heard Kendall screaming and running out of the house. And he's like, yo, yo, yo. He's like jumping up and down. And we're like, what the hell? What's going on? He just starts yelling, the baseball, the baseball, the baseball. So we ran in there. And then if you watch the film, you see where me and Steve, when Steve comes running in, back in. And so for that to happen, like while Kendall was still there right in front of Kendall, and while Steve was on the property still, that was huge.
Yeah.
That was really, really a huge moment for us, because that was some major evidence that we were able to capture on film, you know, while the people are there, the filmmakers are there. So for that to happen right in front of one of the filmmakers was huge. So that was my probably the biggest moment for me in part one, was that part right there.
So unexpected and such a genuine reaction. It's like,
Well, and that was the beauty of it. You know, we had house cameras running that house 24/7. And we wired that house up some years ago because we got tired of coming in there to find the stuff like on the floor that doesn't belong there. We were like, you know what, we need to get some cameras rolling in here, man. Just let them run.
Yeah.
The only rooms that don't have cameras is the bathrooms. Like every other room,
Makes sense.
of course, you know, we don't want to be in civil litigation or anything. Um, so we got the house wired up, and God, we catch so much stuff happening in there when nobody's home, things moving around. It's just nuts.
Oh my gosh, you guys should do
So
one of those I don't know, like I think it's like National Geographic that does it. Like, when like a bald eagle's like having a baby or something, they run that camera
stream it
continuously so you
live
can
for
watch
everybody
it.
just to
Yeah.
watch in there. Yeah,
I would sit there for hours and just lose
yeah.
track of time watching it.
That would be pretty cool. Maybe we'll do that for like a Halloween special or something
That
one
would
night.
be I would
Yeah,
count me in. I'm in.
yeah, that would be pretty cool. So the second film was the real golden egg for that film was when John Bullard, he was doing his little exit interview, like where they film us, you know, for the film, and when I call it the Babe Ruth moment. Are you familiar with Babe Ruth, the home run?
Yep. Yep.
You know, back in the 30s and 40s, whatever. So the Babe Ruth moment was when he walked up the home plate and he took the baseball bat and he pointed towards left field, signifying I'm going to hit this ball over that field, and he did it. The
And you
next
did
pitch,
it. Yeah.
he did it. So so I call it the Babe Ruth moment, because John during that interview actually instinctively went off script and said that carriage is going to come down them stairs. There's that carriage that we had set up on the top of the loft at the
So
stairs,
creepy.
and he went off script and said that. And sure enough, the only reason why it didn't come all the way down the steps is because it hit a camera wire that we have that goes across the top of the step. And we have duct tape. It's taped so people don't trip over it. So that carriage propelled forward, it hit the wire, and it stopped it from going crashing down the steps. That's the only reason why it didn't come all the way down the
But
steps.
what an amazing moment. Like,
It was incredible. It was insane.
I think that's a
So,
very good golden goose egg moment. I think that would
yeah,
send chills.
absolutely. And then there's one more if you remember when that happened. Well, go back to the first film. Go back to the first film because I forgot this one. When ball came down in front of Kendall, and then me and Steve ran in there, and then we ran into the back left bedroom. That's where all of our DVRs are set up. And so two things. First, the camera that shoots up the stairs. When I got to the house that earlier that day, it was pointed away from the stairs. And we had a lot of people in there, production team and camera people and sound guys. Somebody hit the camera and it kind of flipped it off to the right. And I know my cameras. I know where they're supposed to be pointing, like every one of them. So when I came in there, I saw the camera was like aimlessly shooting up towards the ceiling or whatever. So I just instinctively grabbed it and just moved it back to where it's supposed to
You're
be.
like,
And
who
then,
touched my drum set?
you know, so I just instinctively just kind of fixed it real quick and pointed it, where it needed to be going again. I just went about my day. But if I wouldn't have done that, we wouldn't have caught that ball coming down the steps on camera.
Oh.
Because I fixed it. Otherwise we would never had that angle. So when the ball did come down and me and Steve ran back in the house, Kendall was freaking out. We went back to that back left bedroom. And if you remember, if you watch it again, you'll hear me tell Steve, well, Steve will say, did we get it? Did we get it? And I say, yeah, we got it. I re-aimed the camera. And you'll hear Steve say, what do you mean you re-aimed the camera? I'm like, yeah. So then I showed him my phone because I can monitor the cameras from my phone. I said, look, that's a live shot. We're gonna catch it. We're gonna have it. We're gonna have it because I re-aimed it.
Oh my
And
gosh. What a
yeah,
save.
yeah, it was insane. So that was cool. And then remember in that scene where we heard that bang sound and we weren't
There was
sure
a
what
couple
it
of
was.
those, weren't there? Because I was like,
Steve
if I
went out.
remember, it's been a little while, but
Steve ran out and was like, "What is that banging sound?" And so we weren't at the time. We weren't sure, but we heard this big crash sound, like a door slamming against something. And but our adrenaline was so high because the ball just came down the steps. We got it on film, so our adrenaline was really pumping. And so once we couldn't really figure out what happened with the door, it really bothered me. So I started like looking at footage, like to try to figure out what that noise was. And again, the camera that shoots across the living room was also disheveled. It was hit by somebody else, and it was like pointing up towards the chandelier light,
yeah.
which is not how that's not where I normally aim it. But just so happens it was a perfect angle for me to that brass ball that's underneath the chandelier. I saw movement in the reflection of it when I played back the video, and I'm like, what is that? So I looked harder, and we captured the door opening up, and that door that slammed. What Steve heard, that's what it was, and I caught it in the reflection of the chandelier, and I would have never caught it if somebody didn't knock the camera like where it would point. It was pointing right at that light.
I just
So
think
these are
that's
like,
so cool.
yeah, these are like really cool moments. So those are my golden
The golden goose eggs.
golden goose egg. Yeah.
I love it. Honestly, those are actually some really, really good moments. And I feel like I wish I could just like somehow get a copy of both movies into every single home around the world, because like it is just something that so badly needs to be seen. Like I feel like whether you've ever been into the paranormal, whether you're a total paranormal junkie, like it is just so good. Like I feel like I could watch it 1,000,001 times because it's just, I feel like every moment in it just is such an aha, like mind blowing, just I can't even find the words because I'm like, it's just
Yeah.
that good. Like I truly
Yeah.
enjoyed it.
Well,
Um,
we appreciate that, and we get that a lot. I mean, not trying to like brag or nothing, but we do get a lot of really nice compliments, and people were they were like you. They were just really happy to see, these films presented the way they were presented. Um, yeah, I mean, and in part two, we brought in Dustin Pari, we brought in Elizabeth Saint.
I
Seemed
thought that
really
was so, and Sam Baltrusis, I thought that was cool because I actually just had him on the podcast, and I
oh
just,
Sam.
yeah,
Yeah,
Sam.
he was really good in part two.
It
was
was
really good.
fun kind of picking his brain about that. We were
Yeah.
laughing about I didn't know this, but he was like, they had me in like the isolation tent. He's like, and because we weren't really using any tools, like no communication tools, like I
Mhm.
wasn't allowed to use my dowsing rods or anything like that. He's like, I literally just used what was around me. He's like, so I was asking the animals, to give me some sort of a sound to kind of give me confirmation or validation of what I was
Mhm.
feeling. And I was laughing and I said, you're like the psychic Snow White. I'm like, I
Yeah.
said, you're using the deer in the back and the birds.
Yeah. Yeah. He's utilized all his resources.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
thought it
Sam
was
was
really
great.
cool.
He was really good. He was pretty spot on with some things, you know.
I love the way that it's not often I think is in the paranormal world, and this is true with really even any community, when you bring a lot of personalities together, you never know how that's going to work. And because some people are alphas, some people are more laid back, some people are very rigid and on top of
Mhm.
things. And sometimes that tends to butt heads. And I mean, I know I wasn't behind the scenes, but the way that everything presented on camera, the way that the energy just kind of flowed, the way that people worked as a team,
Mhm.
it was a really, really great group of people.
Yeah.
Even the first one, but when you brought all those people to the second one, to have that
Mhm.
many people involved and have that many hands in the pot, to see it work so seamlessly and just work fantastically together to achieve these results was just
Yeah.
that for me was a golden goose egg because it's not often that you see that. So I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, it's a great observation, and really the fact of the matter is the chemistry was great. You have to keep in mind though. One of the things that helped that was even if somebody's has a little bit of a different personality or whatever, but the mission is to help Alice.
Yeah.
That's the whole mission. The end of the day is to get Alice comfortable enough to come back into her home. So everybody kept that first in front. And
Yeah.
that was the main goal. So we had unity across the board just in that aspect alone. So that was the mission is to help Alice here. That's why we're all here,
Yeah.
and that's a big part of that. And the other thing is, I mean, literally, like everybody is good people. I
Yeah.
mean, is there anybody nicer than Dustin Pari in the field? I mean,
Yeah.
if there is, I want to meet him. He's like the
Yeah.
kindest soul ever. Steve's great, Kendall's great, Vera's great. Elizabeth Saint was just a absolute privilege to work with her. I mean, her ingenuity and the things she builds this equipment and stuff. I mean, she is just amazing. Of course, John Buller's been there for so many years, and Alice and Amy, I mean, our team and Sabrina. I mean, it was just everybody. And we have kind of a family thing anyway. I mean, me and Alice and John and Amy, especially.
Yeah.
Um, we're a pretty tight group, and we were very protective of Alice.
I love that though, because I do
Yeah.
think that, like, especially I think when anytime there's a supernatural phenomenon going on, it can be really isolating. Because you have the believers, you have the skeptics. I don't really even really think that there is truly a middle ground. It's just very like you either believe or you don't. And that's just my own personal opinion because that's what I've witnessed. And when you're in a situation like that and you have people are like, oh, you're crazy, or oh, it's the air conditioning making that sound, or it's just an unleveled house, and you feel like you can't share your story and you can't get resources and help. That's super isolating and causes a lot of emotional turmoil. So to have all these beautiful people
Hmm.
rallying around you and building you up and helping you to find a solution to this ongoing issue, and having that support is got to be life
Oh,
changing, and then get a family
yeah.
out of it, friends and family that last forever. I mean, what else
Yeah.
could you ask for?
Yeah, for sure. I was just honored just to work with everybody who I mentioned. And again, getting back to what we were talking about earlier, it's like I still have like surreal moments. Um, you know, I mean, I watched Ghost Hunters years ago. I mean, so many years ago, I used to watch the old Roto Rooter Van episodes back on Sci-Fi Channel. I mean, way back, and Dustin was on there for a while. Then Dustin went to Ghost Hunters International. They had that spin-off series, and of course, I've seen Elizabeth Saint on stuff, and of course Steve. And So like I'll still have surreal moments. I'll share one real quick with you. This is pretty funny. So in the first film, they were at my house following me around with cameras, and I just never was comfortable with that. But you got to do it. You know what I mean? So if you're filming a show, you got to do it. So we filmed the episode, this episode, I call it episode, the scene, or whatever you want to call it. And so we were finished, and I had like the Ghost Hunters sound guy in there, and Kendall was in there, and Paul was in there. He's one of the producers. And Steve's like, "Hey, where's your restroom at?" So I told him, I was like, "It's the first door down the hallway." So he goes off, and so I'm sitting on my couch, and and that's when this surreal moment hit me. I'm sitting there and I'm like looking at these people in my house. I'm like, "Holy crap, man! I got the Ghost Hunters team like literally in my house right now." And Steve Gonzalez is in my bathroom, and that's
You
his
need a
black
t-shirt that says that Steve Gonzalez was
you
in my
know. I'm like, and
bathroom.
that's Steve's black Lexus out in my driveway, and I have like the Ghost Hunters team in here like wrapping up cords in my house. And like a
Oh my
couple years
gosh.
ago, I could have never imagined like that situation. You know, it's just a really, really surreal moment. So yeah.
But it's clearly where you're meant to be. And I mean, like,
Yeah, I agree.
you are doing such a fantastic job. You're doing this, you're now working on two new projects, the
Yeah.
Woodman and
Tahoe
for
Joe.
yes.
Yep.
I
Part
was like,
two.
there's a lot of names floating around. I'm
Right.
like, I
Part
gotta go.
two.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. And also a podcast. I
Yeah, for
mean,
sure.
so you're a busy guy and you're
Yep.
really doing a fabulous job. I can't say that
Thank
enough.
you.
So, I
Appreciate it.
don't know if you want to kind of segue into that and tell us a little bit about that. How do you balance all of
Sure.
this? How did you
Yeah,
get
yeah.
started?
Yep. Well, the podcast got started. I've been interviewing people for over 20 years.
Okay.
Um, Now podcasts aren't really 20 years old, so I'm old enough to go back to where I had a digital recorder, and I founded a boxing mixed martial arts website. It's called 8countnews.com, and we grew it to where we were making really good money with it. And I had 12 writers that worked for me. We were paying these writers, and that back then it was unheard of. You didn't have a lot of online news sources that were paying people in the sports and boxing, in the boxing MMA genre. And so we grew this website, and we had like the biggest names. I mean, we had Mike Tyson, De La Hoya, like the biggest boxing names in the world were coming on our website doing interviews with us. And
Yeah.
we got press credentials to all the big pay-per-view fights in Vegas, the Mayweather fights, Pacquiao fights. And I was good
That's
friends
so
with Freddie.
cool.
Yeah, and I'm good friends with Freddie Roach. She was Pacquiao's trainer. So I used to fly out to Los Angeles, and I would get exclusive coverage to cover these training camps for these fights. And so it was a really wild, great run. And we were making really good money. I had all the major fight promoter companies that were advertising on our website. They were paying us every month to put up their banners on our website, and people
Now,
clicked and
was
they go,
this before or after you wrote your first book?
this was, well, I wrote my book in 2005.
Five,
So
right?
it
Yeah.
was pretty coinciding. It all started
Okay.
around the same time. Um, so maybe a little bit before. I wrote the book a little bit before, because the book's kind of the compilation of interviews I've done with famous fighters and things like that. But
Okay.
anyway, so what happened was we ended up shutting the website down because social media happened. Once social media happened, we lost all of our advertisers, because they were like, well, why should we pay websites when we can build our own following
Hmm.
with social media? So that's what happened. All these big boxing promotions like Top Rank and Golden Boy Promotions, and they started getting their own social media, building their own, hundreds of thousands of followers. So we lost most of our advertising, so we couldn't pay writers no more. So me and the guy who founded it with me, we decided to shut it down. And that was how I got into podcasting, because once we shut the website down, all the years that I had building that website, though, and all the relationships that I formed, and all the celebrities that I've met, because I used to go to Los Angeles all the time and meet celebrities in the gym out there, and all the, don't forget, when you get paid, when you get credentials to cover a fight, you get media credentials right ringside. So who else sits ringside? VIPs and high rollers, right?
I was
So
gonna
I
say
just did
the
my
big
thing.
dogs.
I started networking. I started meeting a lot of these people. So for me, when we shut the website down, I had this void. I'm like, I got to do something. What do I want to do? So I started doing the podcasting, and I already had a plethora of connections to where I can get guests come in, and then I mean not the big names yet, but big enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then after years of doing that, that's how I built my show to where it's at now. But that's how the podcast. That's how that whole journey started with podcasting.
And I've listened to a couple episodes. I love the podcast and I
Thank
love
you.
some of the people that you've had on. I was listening to it was an artist that I wasn't familiar with, Voodoo Tales. No, Voodoo.
I remember that one, but I have literally hundreds and hundreds and
I was
hundreds
gonna
of.
say you have a lot on there. So I was
Yeah.
kind of like, so I was trying to listen to some of the ones that I was less familiar with because I like to learn about like new artists or new
Some of my
entertainers.
some of my funnest interviews, believe it or not, because I interview. I have a deal with Starlight Promotions, and they're a marketing company, and they have unsigned artists that are trying to get to the next level, but they have clients like hip hop artists, R&B, some rock, some country, mostly hip hop, R&B, and these artists will go to Starlight and they'll buy marketing packages.
Oh,
So
cool.
and some of the packages they buy is Starlight will get them radio interviews and podcast interviews because they're promoting songs and they're promoting EPs and albums and things like that. The clients are. So I work with Starlight. They send me some of their artists that bought packages that they want to get on a podcast show. So I'm one of the shows that Starlight uses. So I get a
Cool.
lot of cool, it's good money too. And that's another thing. You don't just make money right away. You really have to work yourself up to that. But so some of these artists that are sent to me, they're not nationally known yet, but some of those are so interesting. Just the
Yeah.
stories and the a real quick one I'll share with you. I interviewed this hip hop artist out of Cleveland, and he got caught in crossfire in a gang shooting, and he ended up being paralyzed. He got shot in the back, and it severed part of his spine.
Oh my
So he
gosh.
doctor told him that, look, man, we can get you fixed up, but you'll probably never walk again. So, long story short, not only did he regain his ability to walk again, because he defied the odds of the doctors, he ended up walking into the hospital like 2 years later and finding that doctor and gave him a signed copy of his new CD, his new record that he had.
Yes, that's what I love to hear. I love to
So that
hear a
was
victory
this really
story.
cool story. You know what I mean? So these are stories
Yeah.
that I learned from some of these artists that aren't signed the big contracts yet. A lot of them have stories, really interesting stories. And and then it's fun also. I just got my 16th season with the Voice TV show on NBC. I've
Congrats.
Thank you. Been working with them for I guess like eight years, something like that now. So that's fun. We're gonna kick off that in August. We'll get back on that again. That's a lot of fun.
I'll be
Yeah,
excited to hear that. It was fun because when I saw you announce that, I was like, oh, I didn't know that. I'm like, that's really
yeah,
cool. So
yep.
how
And I
did you
got
get
some.
mixed into that?
So so I have to go back here and think about that. So like I said, I've been podcasting for a long time, and I love. I'm a huge music fan, and so I got a couple. My first big break was I got a chance to interview the rock band Styx. They're very popular back in the
Yeah,
80s and 90s.
sticks.
Yeah, yeah. So a lady named Amanda, she does their PR work, and I sent her an email. I said, look, man, I got a podcast, and I'm trying to get this thing, to the next level. And so she said, well, send me some links to some of your podcasts. So I did, and this is I want to share this with you for other podcasters out there listening.
Yeah.
So I sent her some links to the ones that I enjoyed the most, and this is why it's imperative. You might have saw my post on Facebook. If you want to get to the next level, it's crucial that while you're at the level you're at, that you conduct yourself with integrity, professionalism, and of course have fun, have your have your some fun, laugh it up here and there. But you really have to keep in mind, if you want to get to that next level, if you want to start interviewing bigger names, most big name celebrity have people that will vet who it is that wants to talk to their clients. So a manager of a celebrity if I reach out and say, hey, I'd love to interview with Mario Lopez, for example, from Saved by the Bell, Slater, and he's a pretty famous guy. He's actually posed with me in the back cover of my book.
It was actually
Uh,
one of my favorite shows. It's such a good
you remember
Saved by the
Slater?
Bell.
Well,
Oh
he's on the
yeah.
back. He posed with me on the back cover of my book.
Oh, okay.
Me and Mario, yeah. So I know Mario pretty good. But anyway, but when I reached out to his guy to interview, of course they listened, and yeah, this guy's pretty professional. But I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't get Amanda to hook me up with sticks. So
Yeah.
once you get one, then you piggyback off of that, But you really it's imperative that you have a professional. I've seen some podcasts. I'm not going to name drop, but I was just like gag.
Yeah, I try and be conscientious because like me, I'm such a goofer. Like I love to like goof and I love to joke and like there's times where I'll cuss and like I just like to keep it organic, but at the same time, sometimes I'm like I think of what you're saying. And so when I saw you post that the other day, I got my wheels turning and I was like, you know
Yeah,
what? He's right. I'm like, I should probably like be more conscientious of like how I conduct myself on the podcast because
yeah,
I
but it's
like to
important
goof
that
off.
but you have to find a happy medium there. I'm not telling people they have to be like a nun or a priest. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I mean, it's okay to drop a cuss here. I cuss on mine every so often. I'll drop an F bomb. I'm not talking about that. That the organic part's fine. I'm talking about keep it kooky though, and don't get into really disgusting. I've seen some podcasts where it's just trash, just
Yeah.
talking about all kinds of trashy stuff, and just really, it's like, come on, man. I mean, if that's what you want, and you want to have only 8 or 9 viewers an episode, well, then fine. But if you
Yeah.
really want to get to the next level, you got to think about at least maintaining some level of professionalism.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's great advice. That's really good advice because I think that I do have a lot of listeners that are younger and are, I've heard from people that have listened to my podcast and they've said, how did you start this? And how did you get into this? And how did you get all these like guests right away and connect with these people? And it's like, I had to approach people and show them that I was serious about making my dream a reality and letting them know that like I had a purpose behind this and that, this is a lot of things like podcasts are the thing right now. I can't say that it'll be like that always, but right now, I mean, they're a really popular thing. People listen to them going to work on their
Oh
lunch break
yeah,
while they're working. And so a lot of people have a lot of stories to tell or things that they're passionate about. And so I feel like that's advice that they need to hear because nobody really knows how to start a podcast or where to even really like promote it or how to go about it. And
mhm.
I feel like some people make those silly mistakes where they don't follow that level of professionalism. They try and get these bigger guests. And then when people listen, they're like, maybe
Yeah, yeah.
not.
You have to think about it. A lot of if you want to get celebrities on your show, most times celebrities are only going to do interviews if they're promoting something, a movie, a new project, a book that they might have written. So they're not going to go on a show. Their PR people or their manager, they're going to make sure they don't put their client, which is a celebrity,
Yeah.
on a show that has a reputation of just trash and crap. You know what I mean? I mean, they're going to vet that show and see if it's a fit,
Yeah.
or they're going to put their client in a situation. So anyway, it's kind of the podcast journey anyway. You know,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and I do have some more celebrity type stuff. I got the band Collective Soul coming back in, the rock band Collective Soul,
Ooh.
and Three Doors Down's coming back. So they're
Oh
another.
my gosh. I love Three Doors Down.
Yeah, yeah. Brad Arnold was on my show, I think twice. Um,
All I'm going to tell you, Brad, is if you ever get Stevie Nicks on and you don't have her give your old pal Morgan a shout out, I
yeah, she's
might
awesome.
drop dead because she is
Awesome.
the love of my life. She is my idol, has been since I was a little girl. I adore
Yeah,
her.
she is the best. I love Stevie Nicks, Fleetwood Mac. I mean, that's my That's my generation. Yeah, for sure. I interviewed Lita Ford. She's a rock. She was really popular back in the 80s and 90s. She was really doing her thing in heavy metal music, which was difficult for women back then. It was very difficult for women to be accepted into the heavy metal thing. I mean, it's just the way it
It was a
was.
man's world back then. It really
And,
was.
and sadly, there's still issues with that in different genres where women just don't get a fair shake. Um, But I interviewed Lita Ford, and she did a really huge song with Ozzy Osbourne. They collabed on a song called if you close your eyes forever. It was called. It was a huge hit,
Sounds
hundreds of millions.
familiar.
If you close your eyes forever, where Ozzy also sings on it with her.
I'm gonna have to listen to that on my Spotify.
Yeah. So when I was interviewing Lita Ford, she told me that they wrote that song in like an hour and a half,
Wow.
which blew me away because the song's got like millions of sales. I mean, it was a huge hit.
And to write it in such a short amount of time.
Yeah, they just
Oh
right.
yeah, okay. I see it right here. I'm like, I'm gonna have to listen to that.
Yeah. She was just telling me that it just came together in like an hour or two, and I was like, "Did you have any idea it would blow up the way it did?" And she's like, "Well, I knew we had a good song, but it went huge. It sold like millions of records, you know."
I'm gonna be thinking of you tomorrow on my drive to work because I'm gonna be blaring that. I love me some Ozzy. I don't think I've heard. Is it Alita or Lita?
Lita Ford, Lita, Lita Ford.
Okay, because I just looked it up and I'm like, wait, I don't remember if I had an A in front of it, but yeah, I'm gonna have to listen to that because I mean, she looks badass. She's got like that 80s hair. She's
Oh
wearing some
yeah,
sort
yeah,
of
yeah.
black get up. I'm
She's
like,
still,
oh,
she's
get it,
still,
girl.
she still tours. She's
Really?
still out there rocking. Yeah, she's still
Good for
playing.
her.
Yeah, she's awesome. Yeah, I've actually contemplated writing a book on my podcast journey. I got a lot of really funny stories. Evander Holyfield, who's a former 4-time heavyweight champion of the world, one of the greatest boxers, one of the greatest heavyweight fighters of all time, and he's in the Hall of Fame. I had him on my podcast. Well, I've interviewed him many times over the years, but one time I had him on podcast, and my recorder was rolling, and he was driving, but we were doing the interview while he was driving. And like as I'm asking him questions, he says, "Hey, hold on a second." I'm like, "All right." So I'm like holding on, and then all of a sudden I hear him say, "Yeah, I want to get a number 3 with no pickles, a large fry." And I'm like, "This guy's ordering McDonald's on my podcast, man."
I
Like we're
love
like,
that.
yeah. So there's like a lot of really cool stories like that I can share. I thought about writing a book about it.
I would read it. So I mean, I know I'm just kind of a little somebody, out there in the universe, but I would read it. So you got one vote so
There you
far. So
go.
I
I
would do
appreciate
it.
it. Thank you. I appreciate that.
But so, I mean, to you, what fills your cup up? Like, what is whether it's a hobby, whether it's something that you're doing currently, whether it's the, documentaries, movies, books,
I mean,
podcasts.
that's a pretty full cup right there. I mean, my cup's full.
What's
My
your
cup's
favorite thing though? Do you have
overflowing.
like a favorite thing, like one thing that like you just could see yourself doing forever?
Well, I'm looking at retiring from my normal job in about 5 more years.
Okay.
And I definitely want to pursue podcasting because I do really enjoy that. I really do.
Good.
I really enjoy it. Like I was telling you earlier, I like to talk, as you know, as you can tell, I love to talk, but I also love to hear people's journeys and really tap into. I like to get connections with people, and just
Yeah.
kind of feel their ride for a little while. One of my favorite things to do. It's not even an official interview, but one of the things you ought to try this too. If you want to have a really good conversation with somebody, the next time you see a couple holding hands and they're in their 80s, somebody in their upper golden years in their 80s or 90s, and they're holding hands, just look at them and smile and say, "How long y'all two been together?"
I
And I
do that all the time.
I promise you, you will get both of them will just be in most cases will be so hungry to share like their chapter on this earth. And some of the best stories I've heard. I mean, one time I did it on an elevator and we got up to the floor, the elevator opened up and we walked outside and we just parked it right there. And 30 minutes later, they're still telling me about their love and how they fell in love.
Oh,
Married for 65 years. You know what I mean? And
I love it. My grandparents raised me, and one of the things that I love is that generation is like my grandparents were not the PDA like lovey-dovey type, but man, when you caught a glimpse of them having a sweet moment, it's enough to bring tears to your
there
eyes.
you
And I
go.
remember just, we would often go to Cape May, New Jersey, and my uncle lived there. And I remember we were taking a ferry And like I said, my grandparents grew up in that age where there wasn't a lot of PDA, but
Yeah.
they were standing at kind of like the bow of the boat there. And I looked over and they didn't think any of us were looking. The kids are running this way. And I kind of was just there in the nook and cranny. And I looked over and they were holding hands. And my grandpa
Yeah.
had like his one arm around her and they were just like snuggling and they shared like a little smooch. And I was
There you go.
like just those little things. And I work in geriatrics. So I get to talk to a lot of people with just these amazing stories. So like when I say that I can 100% agree with you, just getting to listen to different journeys, different experiences, because you think about the journey that you're on, right? I mean, it's a tunnel vision. You know your life, you know what you've been through. But when you truly think about it, all the people that you pass on the street, everybody that you talk to, whether it's a cashier or a waitress or, you know, everybody has a story. And when you start to
100%.
unfold that and you start to hear, some people have 9 kids and you're like, oh my gosh, like, how do you do it? Some
Hmm.
people are on their 5th marriage and you're like, you
Right.
know what? Like, all right, more power to you. Like, you just
Right.
get to hear these crazy stories and it's just so rewarding. So I'm 100% there with you.
One of the best ones I heard, I asked another older couple. They looked in their 80s. I didn't ask them, but they looked in their 80s. And I asked them, and I got a real curveball answer. I was like, how long y'all been together? And they said, a year and a half. I said, a year and a half? I'm like, what the heck? Really? And the guy's like, yeah. He's like, pretty amazing. I'm like, well, what happened? He goes, well, both of our spouses passed away. And we were in the old folks' home. That's how we said it, you know,
Mhm.
and we were playing bingo. And I looked at her and she looked at me, and there was a spark. So it's never too old. You're never too old, Sonny. That's what he said to me. Never
Oh,
too old. I love this girl. So we did it. We got married. I'm like, wow, that's like crazy. But it was amazing.
but isn't it a
You
breath of
know,
fresh air to know that
amazing.
like I feel like society puts age limits on so many things.
Yeah, yeah, it does. And it's really sad. I mean, it does. I mean, just live your life. Live your life.
Yeah.
Be a good person. Be kind to people. You know, everybody has a bad day. I mean, there's nobody exempt from that. But you don't have to be ugly to people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just be good to people. And and also ask people also at that age, I always ask this one too. What's the key to the longevity of marriage? And sometimes you get funny answers like this one guy. He said, pick your battles wisely. You know, he said, even though you know she might be in the wrong, just take it on the chin, man. Just take one for the team.
Take the L.
You know, exactly. Take the L. No, it's just like it'll pass. The next day, you won't even be thinking about it. You know what I mean? So I guess it's
Yeah.
another great question to ask is like, is that one? What's the key to longevity? You get some
I
cool
love
answers.
that. I
Yeah,
really do. And I love your zest for life. I think it's so important to have to have many different perspectives because I feel
yeah,
like we get trapped and caught up in that one perspective mindset. And it's
yeah.
like, look at everything with an open mind, and life becomes 20 times more beautiful than it was before.
Exactly. Always try to find a positive. For example, recently, like the Barbie movie's going crazy right now. Like everybody's going to
Oh,
see the
yeah.
Barbie movie, right? I mean, some people are, I don't want to care, but
Yeah, that's me. I'm like, eh.
which is totally fair. I mean, I'm not a big Barbie fan either, but people are eating. Some of the people are really enjoying it, right? So I was like, I got like 4 or 5 messages from moms. They were like, "Hey, can you?" Because some people know I'm pretty good at Photoshop, whatever. So they're like, "Hey, can you put my kid in the Barbie box for me, like on the photo?" And I got the idea. I was like, you know what? My time is precious, but why don't we make this a win-win? I said, you
Yeah.
know what? If you give me a $2 donation for it, cash at me, I'll start doing these, and then all the money I made goes to my favorite dog rescue program, Hope for Paws. So I made like almost $100 just doing these $2 edits.
But
But
I love that.
I'm sending it all to Hope for Paws, but I donate to them 4 or 5 times a year anyway. But I was like, this is a win-win because it gives kids the joy of seeing them in a Barbie box, and
Yeah.
the money's going towards abused animals.
Yeah.
You know, so always
Yeah.
try to find one of the things I always try to do is find a way you can positively impact the world around you. I've been in dark places in my life where somebody reached their hand out to me. By golly, I took it a few times because I was in a bad spot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I like to live my life. Now that I'm in my upper 50s, I'm 60s, not too far down the road.
Oh,
And
don't lie, Brad. We all know you're 25.
no, thank you, man. I knew we were good friends. So I like to try to live my life to try to give back as much as I can because I've been given too.
Yeah.
So it's paid forward in my mind. But I always try to find a positive in situations and try to help people out. That's one of the things that you were asking me earlier. That fills my cup also,
Yeah.
being able to help people out and things like that.
I think living life with purpose is something that everybody should try and do. So
Oh
I
yeah,
agree with that 100%.
yeah.
I feel like, especially 2023, man, it's a rough world out there.
It really
And I
is.
think we need a lot more sense of community, a lot more love and grace and forgiveness and acceptance. And I
Yeah,
think that if you just live by those cardinal traits, cardinal rules, you really can't go wrong. And I say this all the time. My friends will, they're having a bad day or they're not getting along with somebody. And I always say it's the easiest thing in the world to love, but it seems like it's the hardest thing for people to nail down. And it's the easiest thing. It's honestly hard to hate somebody, but people act like it's the easiest thing to do. And it's like, if you can just be nice, give a compliment, smile, kind of like our parents told us when we were younger. If you don't have anything nice to say, just don't say anything. If just smile and wave and just get along with your day, let it brush off your back. And I feel like if we just kind of learn to hate less, love more, the world would be a little bit better of a place.
there's no question. That's 100% correct. And I think one thing that I think all of us are guilty at some level is knee jerk reacting.
Yeah.
So just because somebody gets snappy at you one day, it doesn't make them a miserable SOB.
Yeah.
Might be a wonderful person that you just happen to catch. Who knows what kind of drama and trauma they just might have came out of.
Yeah.
You happen to catch them at a bad moment and they got a little snappy with you. Try to do your best to just bite your tongue and say, you know what, this person, I might have caught them at their lowest moment in the last month. Who knows? You know what I mean? And try to control yourself. Because a lot of times, if you go back and if you go into defense mode, fire back. Now you've already escalated a situation. When you could
Yeah.
have de-escalated and just maybe just nodded and just walked away or whatever.
Yeah.
So I also believe we still have. I think there's still more kindness in this world than we think.
Yeah.
The
We just
media
don't get to see
really, the
it.
media just engulfs us with negative news all the time. You don't see much feel good stuff in the news, and then and it's just like saturates us with war, like the Russian and Ukraine war, and riots and all these crimes and mass shootings. I mean, those are horrible things that happen in America and around the world, not just here. But if the media would spend half as much time spotlighting beautiful people and what they're doing and how they're giving back to the world and selflessness, because there's a lot of it out there, it just doesn't get any play.
It
It doesn't.
doesn't.
It doesn't. You know, and I think the world would be a lot better if the media would just stop pounding all the negative crap at us all the time, because there's great people out there too. So
Best saying I've ever heard is money is literally the root of all evil,
it
because the
is.
reason that media is still around is because of money. And I feel like it's a money maker, and the more drama that they can push out, the higher the ratings, the higher the income. And it's
Absolutely.
sad because it's there. You are right. There is a lot more good people, good, acts of kindness, humanitarians out there than what we currently see.
Mhm.
And none of that. I can't remember ever watching the news and seeing. I don't even watch the news anymore because I'm like, there is
You can.
nothing good.
Well, what's also horrible about our news is depending on who owns that network,
Mm-hmm.
is the slant you're going to get.
Yep.
If you happen to be a Democratic voter and you have a more progressive ideology, well, then Fox News is evil, and
Mm-hmm.
they do pump out a lot of propaganda. But the flip side is, if you're a conservative, then you hate CNN and you hate MSNBC because both networks, because they're owned by like for example, like CNN and some of the progressive news is like George Soros funds a lot of that, but the Koch brothers are conservatives and they're right wingers. They fund and pump a lot of money into your conservative radio and TV.
Yeah.
So you get, it's almost like two universes. If you look at one channel and then you flip over to the other one, you get completely different, the same topic, but a completely different angle.
Yeah.
One guy's blaming the other one. If you the sky's blue on Fox News, well, CNN saying no, it ain't. The sky's really not blue. But
Yeah.
the other side saying, well, yeah, it is, but they're just fighting over.
It's all in spite of.
It's in
That's what
spite
it
of,
is.
exactly.
It's just the root of the problem is it's just they're doing whatever they can to spite each other. It's like two siblings that are just
and it's the same thing with Congress.
irreconcilable.
It's the same thing with our government. You have me and you, we're Americans, we pay our bills, we try to do good for our families and friends or whatever. And it's like these elected officials on both sides of the aisle. There's nobody innocent here.
Yeah.
They're at each other's throats every day.
Yeah.
This country could be so amazing if there would be compromise. Like right now, they're trying to impeach Joe Biden. I mean, and then Trump's getting indicted. And it's like they're fighting back and forth. They're not working for the American people. They're too busy trying to put each other in jail.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing. It's like
just
we're here.
petty.
How about us? How about the American people? Like actually pass laws and let's get legislation passed and then do things that the American people need.
Take care of our vets, take care of the homelessness problem, the drug epidemics that's going on. Like
lower pharmacy costs and hospital costs, so you're not paying $200,000 for a cancer treatment. I mean, it's just crazy. But they're fighting like they're like school children
petty.
Fighting.
It's literally petty nonsense.
I can't even watch it no more. It's like, look, both of you guys have bad issues. Both sides.
Like, just figure. I feel like I want to get have you ever seen that picture of those two toddlers that their mom shoved them in a t-shirt and they were like, this is our get along shirt? That's what I want to do. I literally want to put a giant t-shirt on them and be like, now sit down and figure it out because this is ridiculous.
I mean, at the end of the day, in America, there's about 340 million people here. Okay, that's a huge population. And the government needs to understand that, look, man, that's a lot of people. Just like we were talking about earlier, when you have that many people living in one place, you're going to have different walks of life. You're going to have different ideologies, political ideologies. You're going to have different religions, different cultures. Everybody's not going to be kumbaya getting along, okay?
Yeah.
But if we can get compromise going here, and you have a little give and take, because one side's not going to be able to just control the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because you're going to get the other half the country pushing back. That's why we need more people that if you're going to govern, you need to come to the middle here a little bit. You can't have one side or the other too extreme. It just won't work.
Well, and kind of like going back to what we talked about earlier when we were talking about the chemistry between the team, right? On the House in Between, you said it's not even so much about the personalities. You said it was just a bunch of people working towards one good common goal
that everybody did agree with.
Yes. And so I think that, I think unity is the biggest superpower that we have is that, like you said, we may not always like each other. We may not always see eye to eye. We may not always agree. But at the end of the day, if we want what's best for one another and we just find unity and find a common goal that we can agree on, there's no reason we can't make this work.
No, it's not. And the thing is, people need to be real about a lot of times you'll hear para-unity in the paranormal world. It's really a pipe dream because there's just too many people. Getting back to what we were talking about before, you're not going to get everybody in the paranormal to get along. It's just like anything else. If you have 10 people in a room, and then the other room you have 100 people, the room that only has 10 people, odds are going to get along a lot better than the room that has 100 people in it, because there's just too many different personalities in the room of 100. You got so many different alpha males. You have some narcissists in there. Let's pepper in somebody who's just arrogant. The math doesn't work. The odds of
the math ain't mathin'.
Well, I'm just saying though, let's use this analogy. If you have if you go to the produce stand, you buy a bushel of 100 apples, and then I buy one of only 10 apples, who's going to have more rotten apples in their bushel?
Good point.
You follow what I'm saying? Because it's a math
Yeah.
thing. I mean, you have 100 apples in there, so the odds of you having more rotten ones than me, because I only have 10 in mine,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
odds
I see what
are
you're
more.
saying.
You know, and that's what I mean by para-unity. Yes, definitely, we want para-unity, but it would be a lot easier to accomplish if you keep your circles rather doable. Like
Yeah.
our team, we had what, 6 people. I mean, that's
Yeah. That's
pretty
more
good.
than doable.
And if you think about it, though, yeah, some of these paranormal teams that have 25 and 20 members, those are usually the ones that have conflict, because there's just so many. There's so many different personalities. You know, you're bound to get somebody to start clashing, and then the talking goes on, and then people start drawing lines in the sand. And you have little factions breaking off.
Little alliances.
Yeah, yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
100%. That's all I'm saying with that. Para unity would be wonderful. It's great on paper. It's great
Yeah.
in theory, and it's great to try to achieve it, but it's probably not doable if you try to do it with too many people. It's just
Yeah. The realism of that happening
that's
is,
all I'm trying to
yeah.
say is the realism.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and in theory, it's great.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And I like I said, I just think that even though we're two people out of how many in the world, all it takes is one. And we can only hope that, if we lead by example, we do the right thing, we do the good thing,
yeah,
that it'll catch on at some point. That's all you can really ask for. You just
that's it.
gotta,
Keep trying it.
yep,
Keep
yep,
trying it. I don't knock anybody for trying it, man. I mean, do your thing. You know what I mean? That's how
exactly.
I see it. Absolutely.
So, now kind of going, because I know we can't delve too deep into it, but do you want to give, I don't know, can you give a synopsis about what the new projects are that you're working about, like a general, like
Yes.
what the
So
Woodman is about?
Tahoe Joe is directed by Dylan Brown. What's really cool about the Tahoe Joe film, and it's soon to be films with plural, is all of the cast are veterans.
Oh,
I love that.
that's
I love
really
that.
cool.
They're all veterans. The filmmaker himself is not a veteran, but he works for the U.S. Army, and he works on a
Oh,
base. So one of the stars of Tahoe Joe is an Army Ranger, a legit
oh
badass.
my gosh. My
You know,
husband's a huge fan
so there
of
you
the
go.
Army Rangers.
So I'm a veteran too, so I love being on this project just for that alone, because it's veterans. I mean, it's all veterans.
I
So
love
it's
that.
basically Tahoe Joe. The first one's on Tubi. You can watch it now. It's on Tubi. It's
Now, is
basically
it more of like an entertainment movie or is it a docu? Like,
no, it's not a documentary. It's actors. Yep,
okay,
it's
cool.
amazing because these veterans are doing a really good job. If you watch it on Tubi, they do a really good job. In a nutshell, it's basically about a missing person, and they it's in these Sierra Nevada mountains over there, and they call Bigfoot Tahoe Joe out there, like for real. That's what they call
Okay.
it. Like in Florida, they call it the swamp monkey. Um,
Okay.
and over in like Nepal, they call it Sasquatch.
Okay.
America calls it Bigfoot. So Bigfoot's all over the world, allegedly, and they have, depending on where you are in the world, it's this title something differently.
So it's kind of
So
like the Mothman. Mothman has a million
yeah,
different names.
yep,
Okay,
great point.
cool.
Yep. So this team of this ranger goes in, and then they're trying to find this missing person, and to see if this is a real thing. This Tahoe Joe, because that's where the person that's missing went in. He went in there looking to research this Bigfoot sightings, and he turned up missing. So they send in this team to try to find him, and then things start happening. So it's really good. So that film is going to start filming, I believe, in August for part 2, the sequel. That's the film that I'm involved with. I wasn't
Okay.
involved with part 1. So The Woodman is directed by Joshua Bruckner, and this is a film about a scientist who's researching feral humans. Are they
Ooh.
real? Is it possible that there could be humans that are feral in the middle of the mountains in like the West Virginia mountains? And so this scientist is really interested in that and trying to research it. So he does, and he's not really like the scientific world's not really that happy about it. It's just like when we were having trouble finding geologists to come into our film, The House in Between. But once they found out it was for a paranormal show, they were like, we don't want to, we don't want to, you know what I mean? It was like tarnish our career or whatever.
Like shun, shun.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, but anyway, so this guy, this scientist ends up going on a mission to see if he can find these feral humans in these mountains. It's really interesting. And two of the original girls that were in the first Scream horror,
Yeah.
are also in this film. They make a couple of appearances in the film.
Ooh, okay.
So that's pretty cool too. So yeah, so those are two projects that I've really had fun helping out with.
And you said do we have release dates on those, you said?
So no, well, they haven't even
Okay.
started filming Tahoe Joe 2 yet. That starts filming in August. So I'm
August,
not
you said.
sure
Okay,
exactly.
that's right.
That's when it starts filming. The Woodman's currently being pitched for distribution.
Okay,
So
cool.
that should be released, fairly soon, hopefully around
So we'll
maybe.
just stand by for that. So to our
Yeah,
listeners, you have the title, so keep your eyes out for these awesome films.
yep.
And is there any other cool projects that you're working on?
No, just the podcast show. You can catch me on iTunes and iHeartRadio and Spotify, and then I have a little bradcooney.com is where I post a lot of the graphics for the guests, the artists. I'll put their pictures up there and their little bios and links to their social media. Um, and I usually have 3 of those a week that I'll interview for Starlight. And then I got some, like I was telling you earlier, I got some of the bigger names that are coming back in. One really cool thing before we wrap it up, I am working on a podcast that, if you're a space nerd like me, astronomy nut, I'm actually going to be interviewing the woman who actually drives the Perseverance rover that's on Mars right now.
Really? That's so cool.
Yeah, she is a PhD. She works for NASA, and she's the one that actually is giving the direction, the courses, the course to take. The rover sends the signals to it, and then of course it takes like 13 minutes for the message to get there because Mars is so far away.
Yeah.
So then it'll move, based on what this my guess is going to, tells it to. What's really cool though is like when she's looking at the rover cameras, so she's the first human being in history to see the new location where this rover is looking at. No other
That's
humans
really
but
cool.
her. She's the first one in the history of the world to see parts of Mars that no humans ever laid eyes on. So that's in the works. She's agreed to do it. NASA vets, getting back to what I was telling you, she said our screeners will look at your stuff and we'll let you know. I've had 5 different NASA guys on my show, so I should be okay. But that's why it's important, again, like I was telling you, because they you want something like that, they're gonna vet you. They're gonna look
That's
at you
really,
kind of
really
show.
cool. I
But I'm
can't wait to
excited for
hear
that
what
one.
she says.
Oh yeah, I can't wait. I'm like drooling to get her on the show. She's brilliant. She's like brilliant. So I want to get her history and her background.
Yeah.
I'm sure she was a little girl one day, and she's from India. So she
Oh
was
my
probably a little
gosh.
girl one day looking at the skies, and now look, she's driving the rover that's on another planet.
And she's the first person to literally lay eyes
Ever
on.
lay eyes on that part of Mars where it's driving? She's the first one to see it. What's
Wow.
crazy? There's probably no life unless it's microscopic life on Mars. But if there was something, she would be the first human to see it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? With her
That's
eyes.
that's what I was thinking. I was like, if she does come across, whether it's extraterrestrial, whether it's a new animal or whatever would exist on Mars, I mean, she's literally going to be the
First
first
human being
person.
to
That's
see it.
so crazy.
Yeah, yeah. Every time that thing makes a right-hand turn and goes behind a hill, she's the
You're
first
like,
human. She's the first human being to ever see what was on the other side of that hill, ever.
that's that
Wow.
is like, but that's a hefty power to hold too. Like that is a
Yeah,
lot of pressure.
it is. But she was also part of the I think the Curiosity rover, one of the last rovers that was up on Mars. She was a big part of that team also. but now
Yeah.
she's like the queen. She's like
She's the NASA queen bee.
she got the credentials and the receipts. She's bringing it all, man. So I can't wait to talk to her.
Yeah, I can't wait to listen to that. So everybody that's listening now, keep your ears open for new content coming to the Brad Cooney podcast. I will link because I think I was listening to you on Spotify, but you said
Okay.
you're pretty much everything. Apple,
Yeah, iHeartRadio,
iHeartRadio,
Spotify, yeah,
SoundCloud, I
Apple.
think.
I think I'm on SoundCloud. I just got to search my name, Brad Cooney, and it'll all come up.
Okay, yeah. So I'll put a couple of the links and then just the name for the Brad Cooney
There you go.
podcast. This way you guys can check it out. But I mean, this has been amazing. We definitely have to do a part two because I still feel like we have a lot more to unwrap and talk about,
Yeah, definitely.
especially with new projects and stuff coming out. So, well, we'll stay in touch. So we'll definitely stay in
I
touch
look forward
and
to it. I had a lot of fun talking to you. You're really good.
oh,
You're
thank
a really good
you.
interviewer.
Oh, well,
Seriously,
I'm happy.
you're a very good interviewer. I really I like how you space your questions out. Sometimes one of the mistakes of podcasts, I will do this and then we'll wrap it up. Some mistakes that some interviewers will do is they'll ask a question and they'll start talking themselves too much.
Yeah.
You had a really good yours was good because you didn't suck all the oxygen out of the room. You asked a question and you went on a little bit, which was perfectly fine to do. I do that too, but then you gave the opportunity for your guests to get in there and really share their report. I've seen some people just take up too much time, and then at the end of the interview, they're like, "Well, we're out of time." I'm like, "Yeah, because you were talking so long. I mean, your
Yeah.
guests,
I'm
didn't
like,
get
well,
enough
I
time
want to
to."
hear your story. I mean, there's definitely
Yeah,
parts where we're relevant, but and where we can relate. But I mean, my whole point of wanting you on this podcast is I want to hear your journey and I want to hear your experiences. A lot of the people who listen to my podcast too probably know me. So I'm like, they already know they know my ins and outs, most
yeah.
of it. So they don't need to hear my gobbledygook, you know.
You did a great job, really. I mean that when I say it.
Oh,
So
thank
keep it up.
you.
Yep, you're
Well,
welcome.
like I said, you're welcome here anytime. I really try and pride myself on having the Ghoul Friend Hour is a safe space. It's a space where, I want people to be their true authentic selves
Sure.
and share their stories. So I'm just super happy to have you on and hopefully I can call you friend now and we can keep in
Absolutely,
touch and
of course, yeah.
so I'm
Of course.
excited to see what new projects are unfolding for you, and we'll be definitely keeping an ear out for new podcast episodes.
Absolutely. And when we get a little closer to the next film projects being released, we'll come back on for sure.
Yes, and I'm hoping soon. I know I was talking to John a little bit about it. My goal is I'm going to get to Florence, Mississippi, because I want to do an investigation.
Mhm.
This house has a chokehold on me, and I am determined.
Yeah, we can make it happen. It's just a matter of coordinating to do that. We just have to give us enough time because we have to coordinate schedules. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
busy house, and so to bring in somebody to do what you want to do is doable for sure, but it's got to match Alice's schedule, my schedule, John's schedule. So it takes a little bit of coordinating, but we can make it happen though.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
And we'll have to, I'll be excited when that happens because then we can get all of us maybe on the podcast and we can do a live episode from hopefully
yeah,
the house and
yeah.
and show people up close and personal that,
Right.
paranormal is live and well.
Yeah, and you can maybe even set up your podcast right there. You
Yeah,
can do it from the location. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yep. Sounds
Well,
good to
thank
me.
you so much for being on. It has been such a pleasure talking to you. And like I said, I can't wait to do a part two. I really had a fun time talking to you today. So I
I
can't
did. I
wait.
did too. I had fun talking to you, and just let me know. We'll do a part two for sure.
Yes. All right. So now every time I finish up my podcast, I close it out with my favorite slogan because weirdos and like you said, weirdos, nerds, everybody alike is accepted here. So I always say, until next time, let's get weird. So I'm going to
Let's do it.
pass it over to you and I want you to give me your best. Until next time, let's get weird. All
Until
right.
next time, let's get weird.
Yes.
There you go.
Have a good night, Brad. Thank
Okay. Thanks
you.
for having me. Have a good one.
Bye.
Take care.